Alright, let's do this. So, regular viewers of my channel will know that I'm currently going through Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I'm having a wonderful time of things, but I also previously went through the precursor module, which is Waterdeep Dragon Heist, with a different group at a different time. And I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on that campaign here because, well, they're kind of relevant in some cases when it comes to the current campaign. I'm aware that quite often I'm nitpicking with Dungeon of the Mad Mage, where it could be better, where I would improve things, and a lot of my sense of being informed of those nitpicks comes from my experience of going through Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Since they are back-to-back modules, it makes sense to look at that precursor and kind of hold it up against what comes next. So it's kind of going to be two parts to this video. I think in this first part, I'm really going to focus on my thoughts on the module itself, what kind of works about it, what doesn't work about it, the kind of just the way that it feels throughout, the kind of what I think Chris Perkins was going for when he designed it, that sort of thing is what we'll look at. And then in the second part of the video, we'll look at my experience of playing through the module, which I'm aware is a very different thing because of course then we're looking at the party, the DM, the group, the location where we played the game, and of course all of those experiences colour one's impression of the former. So I think it's best to kind of separate them out and look at them separately. So yeah, the module itself, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, is fine. It's not as good as I wanted it to be. When I first heard the pitch for the book and I heard what it was about, I loved the idea. Like, on the surface, this is exactly the sort of thing that first drove me to D&D in the first place. The idea that we've got here a central mystery. We are kind of tasked to solve this problem that's affecting the city. We make allies, we make enemies along the way. We follow this breadcrumb trail of clues to find the solution. Bit of a race against time, tracking down a MacGuffin before our enemies do, and ultimately winning the day in a way that is hopefully creative and unique to our own party. So that for me is everything I ever wanted in D&D, and it is what on paper Waterdeep Dragon Heist offers you. At its core, the game is very straightforward. Basically, there is a vault somewhere in the city which is filled with a lot of money and is being guarded by a dragon. In order to get to that vault, you need a special MacGuffin which will open it up. Lots of people in the city are trying to get to that vault, including the big bad, and the big bad actually varies according to which time of the year you decide to play the game. And presumably you as well are there along for the ride. So you're kind of in this race against time. You're trying to get to it before others. You're trying to stop them / get the loot yourself. And it's all very nicely done in that sense. That you do get a real sense throughout of your place within the city. Along the way, you kind of gain notoriety for yourselves. You inherit a tavern, which you can then make your base of operations and fix up in any way you want. You then get recruited by some of the nearby guilds, the Harpers, the Order of the Gauntlet, and so on and so on. And then very soon after, there's this explosion in the street. No one's quite sure what's happened. There's been this explosion. You find out it was a fireball that was set off, and you follow this trail of breadcrumbs, and it leads you to this guy, this quiet little guy who creates little automatons, and one was commissioned by this other person, and you follow that group, and then eventually you manage to actually get your hands on the MacGuffin that you've been looking for all along. But haha, it's actually a fake. It's not a real one. It is a pretend one, and the real one is still hiding. And so it goes on like this for a little while, and eventually you manage to get the real stone. You go to the real vault. You get the real gold. It's quite a brisk campaign. You level up very quickly, which is another reason why the massive delays between milestone points in the follow-up campaign, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. It's why I've been kind of complaining about it throughout. Like, the whole thing to get from level 1 to about, I think we were level 6 when we finished, because we defeated the big bad, got the gold, and we went to level 6. And that took us basically the summer to go through. So it was about 3 or 4 months all told to do that. And then into Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and it will take us like 5 sessions to get through one floor of the dungeon, and that's one level that we go up. And so it's very... there's quite a jarring contrast there, just to make it aware. But yeah, Dungeon of the Mad Mage itself, very, very brisk campaign. And yeah, so I guess positives overall. Doesn't outstay its welcome. There's a very clear through line to everything. There's a very clear objective. You understand what's happening at all times, even though you're never, in our particular case, we were never quite sure why we should care about it. I'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, the module just does this fantastic job of just bringing Waterdeep to life and making you feel part of that world, which is great. But I would say the execution of the module is a little flat, leaves a little to be desired, and there's a few reasons for this, I think, looking back on it and thinking about it a while. I think ultimately one of the big issues is just mechanically D&D is not the best sort of game system for this type of game. If there's one thing that Dungeon of the Mad Mage has made crystal clear in my mind, it's that D&D excels when you are, it's in the name, going through dungeons fighting dragons, right? When you're looking at exploration, finding traps and fighting monsters, D&D is great. It really is, when you're going room to room to room in a big dungeon. But this kind of social interactions, solving clues, I mean, it's not Cthulhu, it's not Kids with Bikes, there are other game systems that do that better than D&D does. And that's, I think, the one thing that I'm learning. D&D just isn't really built. Yes, you can do social interactions and things with D&D, but it's just not really built for that kind of gameplay. The other problem, and I don't know if this is just unique to our party, but I felt there's kind of a bit of a lack of motivation. It was never really clear why the party should care about everything that's going on. There were several points throughout the campaign where our party kind of stopped and kind of looked at each other and we were like, do we actually want this gold? Like, surely, I mean, ultimately, is the city in danger if we just let things play their course? Not really. I mean, and also, like, legally, surely this gold has to belong to someone. I mean, it was Lord Neverember, that was the guy who originally had the gold. And yeah, he's gone, he's not around anymore, but there are members of his family still knocking about. I mean, we even saved the life of one of those members in the very first session. So, like, legally, in terms of laws of inheritance, surely we have no right to claim this gold. Like, it's kind of like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know if you've ever heard this criticism against Indiana Jones, the first movie. Brilliant movie. But ultimately you go through the whole thing and you realise Indiana Jones was actually kind of pointless in that whole thing. Because what happens at the end, whether he intervenes or doesn't, the Nazis still get their hands on the Ark of the Covenant. And then they look at it and then they all turn to dust. And so whether or not Indiana Jones was there or not, it mattered not one bit for the story. And I really felt that way throughout the campaign of Waterdeep Dragon Heist. It was just like, we are here along for this ride. I'm not sure why. We've got a tavern that's pulling a lot of gold. I'm quite happy with this tavern. Let's just do that, shall we? You know? And this is also compounded by the fact that I think the actual mystery itself is quite poorly done in some ways. A lot of the search that you go through, this trail of breadcrumbs, is a bit arbitrary and artificial. I think there's even one point in the module, it was during that part where there was that bait and switch of they find the MacGuffin, but it's not the real one. And there's even a part in the module where it says, like, well, if they do somehow stumble upon the actual one, then just switch it round because they have to discover the fake first. It's like, come on, like why are you artificially padding the campaign like this? And it's just kind of I think just a lack of focus was what I felt throughout. I mean, yes, on the one hand, the book gives you 4 bad guys that you can fight against. You can set it in autumn, winter, spring, summer. Really great idea on the surface. We had it in autumn, so our big bad was this pirate whose name was Jarlaxle. On the one hand, it's a good thing because it means you can replay the module multiple times and have a different experience multiple times. But at the same time, I mean, Curse of Strahd does the same thing. There are randomized elements in that, and at the same time, there is just one big bad guy, Strahd, who is looming large over that campaign. Same with Dungeon of the Mad Mage. There is the Mad Mage himself looming large over the whole campaign, and giving the option of having 4 different bad guys there, it actually dilutes the strength of each of those big bads, because they need to be like interchangeable, in which you could put any one of the 4 there and the plot still works. And so none of their personalities really came across as a result. But again, that might just be a result of the group that I was in. And likewise, you know, at one point you gain some notoriety in the city, and some of these guilds, they come by and they start trying to recruit you. It felt a lot like University Freshers Week when that was happening. You know, when I first joined university, and you're kind of doing the tour of the campus, and you had like a whole bunch of people setting out stalls being like, join the Conservative Society, and then over here, no, you want to join the Labour Society, and then over here you got, screw those guys, let's join the Wearing Odd Socks Society, and you just had a whole bunch of different societies. This is the Playing Chess Society, and this is the Rowing Society. We didn't have a rowing society, we were nowhere near a river, but you get the point. You're just being pitched to, and it was the same thing here. It's like all these guilds are just suddenly knocking on our door, and they're just like, hey, join the Harpers, hey, join the Order of the Gauntlet. It's like, guys, go away. Did you not read the sign? Like, no ticketing. Go away. So yeah, it was all a bit strange as a result. And I think going down that pathway as well leads to problems for our party, because in our case, multiple different members of the party ended up signing up for multiple different guilds. One of the members of our party even joined the Xanthars Guild, and that was a slippery slope to PvP, and ultimately the group breaking up. But I'll get to that later on. But yeah, I think if I were ever running this campaign, I wouldn't give the party a choice. I think I would just have one guild knocking on the door trying to recruit them. I'd just say, the Harpers, they are here. And they would like get all of the members of the party onto their side, regardless of those individual members of the party's backgrounds or upbringing. Get them all on side. They are assembled like the Avengers, and then you know, from that central point, they can then like send them out on different missions, like the Avengers. It feels a little bit more focused as a result. So yeah, I think that's my thoughts on the book itself. And at this point, again, I have to caveat this whole thing by confessing that my opinion of the book might be tainted by my experience of playing in this particular group with this particular DM. So I would say, all in all, it is an average D&D book. It does some things that are very different. It's a bit of a palate cleanser if all you've ever done before are like is dungeon delving. It's a nice change of pace if all you've ever done before is like the missions from like the starter modules or whatever. Again, it's something a little bit more fully formed that you can sink your teeth into. So it's a nice change of pace. It's a nice experiment. I wouldn't say it's a successful one, and I would say there are much better D&D modules out there. Dungeon of the Mad Mage being one of them.